Thank you, Radhesham.
Hare Krishna.
That's nice too. So, Pavan, because you're a little closer to the mic and we might hear you better, could you read the verse and one paragraph of the purport, add in additional comments?
Absolutely. And I have a question just for you.
Okay, yeah.
We'll get to that.
I was going to ask everyone what they did this week too first.
I can read Sanskrit. Pashantyada mada prachakshusha sahasrapada rumujana utam sahasramurtha shravana shivanatikam sahasramauri ambara kundala lasat.
The devotees with their perfect eyes see the transcendental form of the
Aren't we on 133?
I'm on 134.
I think we did 132 last week, didn't we, Kapil?
We did the 3-1, Prabhu. So 1 point, so 3 was completed. Today we are on 4th. They are on the right verse.
Oh, okay. So we're on 4?
Yes.
Okie dokie. Go ahead.
Okay. The devotees with their perfect eyes see the transcendental form of the Purusha, who has thousands of legs, thighs, arms, and faces, all extraordinary. In that body, there are thousands of heads, ears, eyes, and noses. They are decorated with thousands of helmets and glowing earrings and are adorned with garlands. With our present materialized senses, we cannot perceive anything of the transcendental Lord. Our present senses are to be rectified by the process of devotional service, and then the Lord himself becomes revealed to us. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is confirmed that the transcendental Lord can be perceived only by pure devotional service. So it is confirmed in the Vedas that only devotional service can lead one to the side of the Lord, and that only devotional service can reveal him. In the Brahma Samhita, also it is said that the Lord is always visible to the devotees whose eyes have been anointed with the tinge of devotional service. So we have to take information of the transcendental form of the Lord from persons who have actually seen him with perfect eyes, smeared with devotional service. In the material world also, we do not always see things with our own eyes. We sometimes see through the experience of those who have actually seen or done things. If that is the process for experiencing a mundane object, it is more perfectly applicable in matters transcendental. So only with patience and perseverance can we realize the transcendental subject matter regarding the absolute truth and his different forms. He is formless to the neophytes, but he is in transcendental form to the expert servitor.
Comments, questions, comments and questions, both.
Can I just jump ahead with that question I've got?
Sure.
I don't know if this is related, and maybe I'm off track here a little bit, but I'm just going to throw it out there. Okay. It kind of relates to Canto 2, Chapter 7, Text 3. At the very end of that verse, it says, the antiseptic potency of devotional service to the Lord is so great that it can neutralize the material infection even in the present life of a devotee. A devotee does not need to wait for his next birth to the complete liberation. I find that inspiring.
Find it what?
I find that inspiring.
Well, but used to say over and over and over again, you follow the 4 regular principles, chant 16 rounds.
Exactly.
And you go back to home, back to God at next life. He used to say it's guaranteed if you do ever. But the thing is, it can't be done casually. It has to be done very seriously without deviation. Otherwise, it may take a little more time. But after having been in this material world for who knows how many tens of thousands of perhaps lifetimes, we're we've turned things around. It doesn't take long to get back out once you call upon the help of the Lord. Even in the Bhagavad Gita song, the Supreme Krishna streams to his team member Arjuna, the cream of all the devotees. Arjuna, the things you do every day, the gifts you give, and every tasty veggie dish often gives me love and to your soul rich. A cup of water makes me smile, though I can drink an ocean of cloud, fruit and leaf are fine if they're offered in devotion. Keeping me in the center of your karma will never interfere, because loving devotional service is the dharma, the spiritual atmosphere. I don't play what gets what they do. So if someone longs for me in bhakti, I'm naturally inspired. Here's the verse I'm getting to. Even if you mess up a time or two, I won't make any complaint. Just rise up again, and you can still shine like a saint. The Krishna is merciful. He's forgiving. He's willing to guide our footsteps on the path we tread back to home, back to Godhead. And none of that's due to our qualifications. It's due to the fact that we have hooked up with a bona fide spiritual master. I have to nip out here. Bhai Bobby's changing the washing machine. We live down in the basement. Oh, wait a minute, stop now. They put a new washing machine in, the volunteers, and they're testing it out, and it sounds like an earthquake next door. Did you hear that sound? Did you hear it?
We did, Prabhu, but we did, but we did, but we followed your message and instructions that even if you make one or two mistakes, that's okay.
With that rumbling, that loud noise in the background, I think I did make one or two mistakes, but managed to stay on topic. Anyway, it stopped for the moment, thank God. But if it starts up again, I'm going to have to go out and do something. That was like.
You were very fast enough when you were talking, when the sound was coming. You were very fast speaking.
Try not to lose your train of thought there.
Sure, Prabhu, I have a follow-up on this one. So don't want to derail from our conversation today. But since you were talking about the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, this verse, 30th verse, not in our last Bhagavad Gita class, but maybe a couple of classes ago, someone asked me this question that the 30th verse goes like this: even if one commits the most abominable actions, if he is engaged in devotional service, he is to be considered saintly because he is properly situated in his determination. So maybe part of our discussion, if you can throw some light on this piece, especially that regardless of the degree of or the type of the mistake, Krishna will accept you back. So people were challenging that, okay, people can take advantage of this message. So hearing both sides, we just want to hear from your perspective, like how to read and understand the verse 9.30th in Bhagavad Gita.
There's a verse in 5th canto, 6th canto, Kvachid nirvatate badvat kvachid chara prayaschitamito partam manye kunjara socharam. Does anybody know what that means? Kvachid nirvatate badvat kvachid chara prayaschitamito partam manye kunjara socharam. Does anybody know what kunjara socharam means? It says, Kvachid nirvatate badvat, doing a sin, and then atoning for it or confessing to the sin, and then going back and doing the sin again is compared to what? Does anybody know that analogy in the 6th canto of the Bhagavatam?
It should be a crime.
Compared to not learning from your mistakes.
No, I'll give you a hint. It's compared to the behavior of a certain animal.
The elephant.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
Elephant is taking shower, then going down to the earth.
Exactly. Manjara kunjara sochava. The elephant goes into the river, spends a long time taking a bath, getting himself clean, because he has a lot of cracks in his skin, and dust and mud and all can get in there. So he very carefully, painstakingly cleans all the dust out of all the cracks of his skin. It takes him a considerable amount of time. But then as soon as he gets out of the water, he rolls in the dust again. And there's probably a good reason for that. I mean, I think the dust might keep him cool on those hot African Indian days. But that's compared to the person that makes a mistake. Well, actually, let's look at this. What's the difference between a mistake and doing something willfully?
Oh, big difference.
I think so. What is
Mistake
it?
is kind of a, oops, I wish I hadn't have done that. But if you deliberately do it, that's sinful.
If it's a mistake that's made regularly and repeatedly, then it's no longer a mistake, is it? It's not isolated anymore. It's a pattern of behavior. Right? And why is that different from just making an occasional fall down? What is, how does repeatedly transgressing destroy devotional life, whereas occasionally making a mistake does not?
Well, one is intention for sure, that the
Yeah.
intentions are different, and the objective as well. I think those are the two things came to mind when you were asking this.
Mhm.
What can you clarify? That was interesting what you said about the objective. I think that's a very good point.
Prabhu, in the repeated mistakes, you know, to Mataji's point, you're not learning and trying to find escape somehow. That, okay, you committed it, you try to learn it, not learned it, and then again repeated the mistake. In the occasional fall down, sometimes Prabhu, because of the influence of Maya, the association, there are other factors as well. When you try to repeat the mistake, you cannot blame someone else for it. But in the occasional mistake, there could be, and I'm not saying that every time there is some, but there could be other factors that might have contributed to that occasional fall down.
I think when you say the objective, it's a very good point, because someone may be on the devotional path, they may have the lotus feet of Krishna as their objective, but they occasionally break with that. They occasionally become overwhelmed by circumstances, or maybe an old habit comes back to them. But their objective is still to move forward with
Yes.
Krishna consciousness. So they can put that mistake aside, pick themselves up, dust themselves off, and move ahead. So in other words, if your heart is right, if you want more than anything else Krishna, but occasionally you stumble, that's okay. That's what Krishna is talking about. Apichit saracharo. But if you make sins a habit, and then you think you can just negate the effect of the sin by chanting Hare Krishna or confessing, then I think it's safe to say your objective is not Krishna. Your objective is sense gratification. Am I wrong?
That's correct, Prabhu.
So that was a really good point that you made. Nate vidu shvarta gatimi Vishnu darasyehi vihirajamaniham. Prahlad says the problem with most people is they don't know what the goal of life is. And so, not knowing in which direction to move, they just act whimsically. They're at the mercy of time and tide. But once one connects with a bona fide spiritual master and learns what is the purpose of life, then I read somewhere it's like being struck by lightning. You're never the same after that. Even if you make an occasional mistake, you still can't put aside, you can't forget, you can't dismiss that taste, that rasa, the honey from Krishna's lotus feet. There's a verse in the first canto, I forget what it is, Savai Kanchan Mana Krishna Paradam India. Says that once one has tasted the nectar from the honey of the lotus feet of the Lord, he's never the same again. Others who are unaware of Krishna consciousness, they're like orphans. They have no shelter, no protection. Their life is meaningless with chaotic elements. But anyone who's even briefly contacted a pure devotee of the Lord and tasted that nectar of their association, it says they're not like the non-devotees. They're like they're also maybe lost, maybe wandering around, but now they have a protector. Now they have their Father looking over them, looking after them, so that whatever happens to them after that is an opportunity to learn and to reawaken and revive your Krishna consciousness. So Krishna consciousness changes one's life. Even if one doesn't become immediately serious, still there's a different direction. people often ask us, does it bother us when people come to the Festival of Colors that they don't take it seriously? Not really, because we're just trying to give them that initial taste. They've been wandering from Anda Brahmite, Konabagan, throughout all of the universes, through various species of life, without any taste of Krishna consciousness. So if we can just get them to chant and dance one afternoon and listen to some messages, they're going to get the taste. Now, the problem is their taste is gross. Their taste is animalistic. So they're not going to recognize how sublime and pure Krishna consciousness right away. They're going to recognize it on some subconscious level, but it's not going to be like necessarily a cathartic moment, being struck on the way to Damascus. It's not going to be anything that they're going to be conscious of particularly, but nevertheless, it's got under their skin, the love, the philosophical insights, the music, the food. It's got under their skin. It's now a part of their experience in this material world. And that's what they're actually looking for. Everybody's looking for that rasa, that taste, Krishna consciousness. We find it only in its perverted state in material relationships. So when we do the Festival of Colors, most people admittedly come just to have a good time, be frivolous. But having come, they're bitten by the Krishna bug. And now they're never going to be satisfied until they come back. Because then now they want to experience that honey again and again and again. There's nothing that can compare with. Rob, what do you think? Are you with us? Nice to see Rob at the temple last night. Rob and myself and Ramakrishna, as well as Mark and Daniel and Govinda Dev, we were all sitting next to each other in conversation in the lobby. Like Kapil said, it was a very uplifting session last night.
Prashad was amazing. The conversation was amazing. It was in total unparalleled, I would say.
If we were all to share something significant that happened last week, probably more than one of us would talk about the 20th anniversary celebration in Spanish Fork. If in case you didn't see our Facebook posts, about 1,000, 1,200 people came. There were speakers from the Christian and Mormon community. Divya Narayan and Manya students performed, as well as Isha Patel and Bali Pop Group. And then we had a couple of students of Harshita and Jaisri, students of Sonali, did the talk on stage. That was a very successful event. We had an interview with Gopal Bhatta also the previous Thursday on the GBC SPT, which is on our Facebook page and our YouTube channel. We told many of the amazing stories behind the building of the Spanish Fork Temple, which you see behind me.
But I should say your yesterday's talk, your yesterday's lecture, your yesterday's teaching was amazing. It was full of life. It was basically what exactly we are doing, what exactly I am doing, and what exactly that teaching was exceptional yesterday.
Lakshai, do you think that if a young person like yourself took that kind of a teaching of non-retaliation, non-retribution, letting Krishna fight your battles, if you actually adopted that at least to some degree in an early age like yourself, do you think it could save a lot of time and a lot of energy later on in life? I'll let you answer that question. I'm going to go see if I can turn the washing machine off and start it up again.
Laksha, over to you. Tell us.
Huh?
Tell us about. Were you there? I don't know that you were there in the lecture.
Yeah.
And there was this. So first, tell me what was your main understanding about it, and then I'll ask you another question.
My main understanding was that if you really rise high and if anybody starts to envy you, don't fight back against them. Really, just don't notice them and like don't explain to them that why it,
That is amazing, because that was the main message last evening. And when Charu Prabhu said, it was very profound. He looked at all the kids in the auditorium and he said that kids, listen to this specifically, even though all the adults on this call can resonate well with this particular message. But Charu Prabhu said that kids, listen to this. If you are not able to celebrate the highs of people who are around you, maybe they could be envious to you, but if you can't celebrate, then Krishna won't take you to the highs, right, that you also deserve. So I think that's the message applicable to every one of us.
Yes.
Kapil's had a lot of success in his career recently. He's been with the CEO of Goldman Sachs. He's been appointed as one of 2 people to be a departmental head and all. And even his former supervisor once, he said to Kapil the other day, Kapil said, "I'm afraid that I'm stepping on people's toes." And Kapil's former supervisor said, "Kapil, don't worry. You're not capable of stepping on people's toes."
So he asked me, like, what is your biggest challenge in getting into this new role? And I said that last thing I want to do is step on someone's toes, because there are other people, they are my peers and all that good stuff. So I said that I'm sorry to tell you, but you don't have the personality to step on someone's toes.
And that is very nice.
Everyone knows Kapil. He's everybody's friend. He never gets into it with anybody. He's always supportive. He's always smiling. He's friendly to everybody. I mean, he's probably one of the best known people in Salt Lake City. He's offensive. He's in the marketplace, which is characterized by backbiting and office politics and all. And yet he himself is not. He doesn't have that nature. And yet, Kapil, I think you have to agree that no matter how ideally we act or how impartial we try to be, you're going to have enemies in spite of yourself, isn't it?
Yes, Prabhu, that's true. That's the nature of this material world, Prabhu. That is expecting the spiritual abode in Salt Lake City.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I want to add one thing here. Of course, Kapil Bhai, we all know his nature, but we don't have to go find enemies. We ourselves are the biggest enemy of ourselves. We don't have to find any more enemies.
You are right. You are right, Rakesh.
That's why it's important to chant Hare Krishna and cleanse the heart, because the heart is not clean. What happens is eventually the dirtiness of the heart will come out. We think we can think one way and then hide it and present ourselves in a public way. But the problem is eventually that will catch up with us. The bad thoughts, the envious, the competitiveness, the jealousy. If we don't become very aggressive to remove those dirty things from the heart, eventually they're going to come out of our mouth. And we're going to say something or do something that's going to offend people. People are going to, we're going to come across as inconsiderate, uncaring, or jealous of other people. And so, like what you said, Rakesh, we can be our own worst enemy if we don't seriously apply the principles of Krishna consciousness, chant attentively, really get down there in the dark corners and crannies of our heart and root out that envy, that jealousy, that competitive spirit. We really don't have a choice. You can't just tread water. You can't be neutral. You have to be proactive. You have to be aggressive, because if you don't root out those dirty things within the heart, they are going to manifest in your speech and in your behavior. You may not even realize it, but people are more perceptive than you think. They can look at your behavior, they can look at your body language, and they can intimate that you, even though you're saying one thing, you may have a negative attitude towards them, or you may not. They may feel like even though you're saying the right words, you don't really care about them. So we have to be the same inside as outside. Krishna never says a devotee has to be perfect. Krishna will forgive all kinds of mistakes. But what Krishna will not forgive is pretense. He will not forgive hypocrisy. You have to be the same inside as outside.
Charu Prabhuji,
Yes.
yeah, one question here. That there are times when you don't have control, things comes out. At that time, how to prevent ourselves from speaking those things, or
Chanting
how
Hare
to?
Krishna, you have to be proactive, you know. You might as well ask, how can we stop the wave from hitting the beach? Well, when the wave gets to the beach and it's already curling, there's no way it's not going to crash on the beach. If you can't wait to that point. You can't bite your tongue. People say, well, I can think all these bad thoughts, but then I won't say anything. I'll bite my tongue. But the problem is that the wave started a half a mile out. If you wanted to stop the wave, you had to go back to where it started and address it at that point. So when we put our foot in our mouth and we say things we shouldn't say, it's what we should have done is we should have chanted Hare Krishna in the early morning hours according to a scheduled measurement and with attention, because that's what would have cleaned up the dirty things within the heart. If you don't pay attention to them, they have their own momentum, and they rush from the heart to the beach, to the mouth, you might say. So, I heard about two guys. They spent 30 years in the same company. One man, he went right to the top. He went right to management. The other man was in the same job for 30 years. He never got any promotion. And the difference between the two was the man who never got any promotions, he said like 50 words more every day than the man who got the promotions. And those 50 words, generally speaking, were words that in some way, directly or indirectly, consciously or unconsciously, offended his co-workers. So because of the 50 extra words a day he said, the lack of control of his tongue, the lack of discipline, he remained stuck in that low-level position for 30 years. And because the other man had enough control, he had enough purity of heart that he said 50 less words, he got to the highest position.
Yeah. And Prabhuji, I want to add something here for the question that Ajay Prabhu asked, and what Laksha was saying, that sometimes people feel jealous and then you just don't have to like worry what they feel about you, just ignore them. I think Charu Prabhuji very well said that we need to keep chanting Hare Krishna, and just fake it till you make it, as Kapil Bhai also mentioned in one of the call, fake it till you make it. We are not so pure that we can chant every time with full heart, but just keep doing it, because our mind, it cheats us, it does its best to keep us away from chanting or doing any devotional service. It brings all those thoughts at the right moment. So we need to fake with it, even though we are not chanting with 100% consciousness, but just keep doing it, keep practicing, and doing the service will cleanse our heart. That's another thing. And if we are facing those things in the temple, because sometimes people feel offended by our behavior, or sometimes it's some people say a few things that you don't like, but remember in your heart that why I'm here, what was the reason that even during the pandemic or with my busy schedule I came to the temple. Did I come to argue with X person or chit chat with Y person? No, I was here for Krishna. So do your service, do your chanting, everything for Krishna. Even if people are saying, just listen from this ear, take it out from that ear, and before you take it out, take it to your heart and say, Krishna, this person needs your blessing, so they can speak the right words next time. So that is what I want to suggest. And service is the only thing. And I may be sidetracking, but I want to show one Prabhuji. He's visiting from Houston. His family, they prepared us such a nice feast for the breakfast today. There is a strawberry halwa, jalebi, aloo paratha, pakora, and then
I
there
met
is
that
tomato
family,
curry,
met that
poha.
family last night. Yeah.
Yeah,
He knows Shima Sundar very well.
yeah. So they and when I saw them, I felt so inspired. So they are here for the service. They could have gone, like there was no reason for them to just come to the temple, and that's what we need to learn. Even though we are going out for the family trip, if we can squeeze in our schedule, find time to go to the temple, that's what will cleanse our heart.
Wonderful.
Very well said, Rajesh Prabhuji. बहुत very well
Thanks,
said.
Ajay Prabhu, because we all are on the same boat. We all feel that way. Like we all have those times when we are like, oh, how can I control? Words just are like about to come from our mouth, but just remember why I came to the temple, not to fight with anybody, not to listen to their things. I'm here for Krishna. Let me just ignore that thing.
It says that when you make a mistake and you become
Hari Bol,
aware,
Prabhu.
you should do two things. You should seek apology, and you should make restitution. So if you have any kind of sparks fly between you and another congregational member, the best thing is to go right up to them and say, you know, I'm not perfect. I'm trying. I'm on the path. I certainly I apologize if I said anything that might have offended you. I don't want to get into a confrontation with you. We're both working on the same team towards the same goal. So that's the apology. You know, as quickly as possible. If you see that somebody's offended, make the apology. And sometimes they're offended. You didn't intend to offend them. The word you said wasn't really particularly offensive, but they took it that way. So then what does it mean? Trinada pisa nichana tarora pisa ishnamani namanadana kirtanya, devoid of all sense of false prestige. So if you're full of false prestige, you think, well, I didn't say anything bad, really. I didn't mean anything bad. It's just that person is over exaggerating. That person is misinterpreting. I don't have to make an apology because he's taking it all out of context. Well, you may be right, but you're not devoid of false prestige. See what I'm saying? It's your false prestige which says, well, I'm right, I shouldn't have to apologize. That's false prestige. But the attitude of having a straw in your teeth means that, you know, I don't really care if I'm right or wrong. I just want to have peace with my God brothers and peace with the people who visit the temple. So you can apologize even where really no offense was made or no offense was attended. That's why so many times in my years as a devotee, devotees are always saying by email or text or saying, please forgive me if I made any offenses. And I'm thinking, what are you talking about? Well, a lot of times, you know, we've offended somebody, and it was just their imagination. You know, we didn't intend to say anything. We didn't even say anything particularly offensive, but our imaginations are so active, and our conditioning from so many different births is such that we jump to conclusions, the wrong conclusion. We take offense where none was intended. And that's why Prabhupada, he had all the devotees when they first see each other in the beginning of the day, they bow down, they offer their obeisances to each other. Because most of the offenses that we made, we didn't even know about them. We didn't even intend them to be offenses. So, in the likely event that on the previous day I offended somebody, knowingly or unknowingly, we bow down to them at the beginning of the day, we offer obeisances, we call them Prabhu, so that then those offenses are forgiven and we start the day clean. Should never allow these things to fester, to stay unaddressed. You know, even the ones that you're unaware of, you take care of that by saying, please forgive me for any offenses, by bowing down. You make sure that you're never, nothing like that's ever in the air, you know. It says in purport to the verse I thought we were doing today, that we're all hankering after rasa, that pure love of Krishna, which comes in Dasya, Sankhya, Sakya, Vatsalya, Madhura. But when that's not present, when the real love between the soul and God is not present, then there are all these other things like ghastliness, horror, terror, and so what we're experiencing in this material world is rasa without purity. It's perverted rasa, which means conflict, misunderstandings, miscommunication. And so, especially in this material world, Prabhupada established certain protocols that we can always be clearing the air. These things will not build up amongst the devotees.
That's a great message, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Sarabi, you want to chime in here? You always have some deep penetrating insights based on your deep study of scriptures.
Hare Krishna, everyone. Um, so, as you said in the beginning, that if you are not with the Krishna consciousness, you are just like an orphan. I also heard that the problems right now having in the youngsters being depressed and this and that, just because they have divorced themselves from the religious community. Doesn't matter if it is Krishna consciousness or Christianity or any religion, but not being connected to the father, that's like you are wandering everywhere, you don't know what to do, where to go and all that stuff. And also to the service in the temple is just to crush your ego, and when there is no ego, you are all serving, all humble, all in the service of the god. And there are very less chances, yeah, in the beginning, yes, you will have egos and all that, but the purpose of serving in the temple especially is to crush your ego and serve without any negativity and all that stuff.
Yeah, if there's, let's consider false prestige
Yes.
means bodily misidentification, but it's not that we don't want to think of ourselves in any way. False prestige means think of ourselves in an over-exaggerated, think of ourselves as over-exaggeratedly important, and that makes us touchy and easy to offend, moody. But it's not that there shouldn't be some prestige. I mean, we should think of ourselves in some way, not that we just don't, not that we don't have some sort of ego. It's just that we don't want false ego. We don't want to labor under the false prestige. And so, we can take pride in the fact that when someone says something that's thoughtless or inconsiderate or even aggressive, um, our prestige is that I let it pass. That's who I am. You know, I'm not a wrangling mundaner. I'm a devotee. That means I don't care about these things. I don't need people's approval. I've got Almighty God's approval. When we carry ourselves with confidence, we look people in the eye because we have the greatest power in all of creation on our side.
Yes.
So that makes us like swan-like. We navigate the waters of this material world without being disturbed or unduly upset by them. So prestige is there. We can actually be a little bit proud of the fact that when someone provokes us, when someone baits us, we don't react. They push our buttons and nothing happens. That's our prestige. That's what we're proud of. Problem is, you go to the movies, you read the newspapers, you read books, and we're told that the best people, the real men and the real women, they take justice, they take matters of redress into their own hands. Uh, they see themselves as the doers.
Yeah.
That's the example that we have wherever we turn in society. That's the wrong example. It says that it's a sign of a strong man to avoid a fight, and yet everywhere we turn, people are fighting. But those are examples of weak men and women. They're not examples of strong men and women. Strong men and women avoid a fight. We've got more important things to do. than be dragged down. People who fight, they don't have a goal. They don't have a purpose in their lives. They got nothing better than to do than to walk around with a chip on their shoulder, imagining everybody trying to offend them. You've heard people say, well, everybody's trying to put me down, everybody's, leaving me out. And you got to say, hey, everybody doesn't even know you. Everybody doesn't even care about you, Who do you think you are? And everybody's offending me, everybody's playing politics. You're not that important, that's false prestige, you know. Devotees don't need other people to recognize them. They don't need other people's name on their lips. They just go about their job trying to please Krishna. And if someone tries to get in their way or try to distract them, they just keep looking forward. They stay in their lane, look at the goal of pleasing Krishna. Krishna's lotus feet, Om Tad Vishnu Paramam Param Sadavasanti. They look up to see the lotus feet of Krishna above them like the sun in the sky. Other people are just walking with their heads down, looking for rocks, thorns, brambles, bugs, snakes. Their antennas tuned to all the negative, all the opposition, all the things that could go wrong. So I believe the devotee can think well of themselves, especially when they transcend the provocations that come from materialistic people. What do you think? Rob,
Very true.
there? Rob, do you think prestige has any place in the role of a devotee and the life of a devotee?
No.
In the day.
Krishna's prestige has lots
Krishna's
of
prestige. I was
lots
about
of
to say the
meaning.
same thing. That may not be our prestige, but Krishna's prestige is yes, for sure.
We don't take personal credit. We recognize the source from whom all the blessings and all of the accomplishments, where it all comes from. And so when people tell you how great you are, you can glorify your spiritual master or someone else, but don't get a swelled head. A humble person is not someone who thinks less of themselves, but it's someone who thinks of themselves less. So we think about, we know that we're here, we're part of the scene, but we're not so much thinking about me and what my aspirations are for this particular situation. I think it's really a wonderful thing to always use every challenging situation as a way to see how deeply anchored you are in your faith and your connection to Krishna when challenging, provocative circumstances come up. If you are easily triggered, well, you probably didn't chant good rounds that morning. Something is not, the foundation has been unsettled a little bit.
One time a devotee said, Prabhupada, you look like a king when you walk and talk. You look like a king. Prabhupada said, why do you want to degrade me in that way? Krishna himself says, Acharya Mambigata Nava Rajasharga. The Acharya is to be taken as myself, actual representative of God in human form of life. So that the viceroy or the ambassador to the king, he may not think that he's so great, but he has a duty as a representative of the king to carry himself like a king. He's not the king. He's not thinking he's the king, but he represents the king. So he has to carry himself like a king. His job is to uphold the position, the power, and the prestige of the king. So the viceroy, the ambassador, he may not want any prestige for himself, but he has to be concerned about the prestige of he whom he represents. When people praise you or compliment you, it's not appropriate to say, oh, I'm nothing. Oh, yeah, no, it's not appropriate to defer all those compliments or discourage them. Compliments are fine, but you have to then redirect them. Say, well, whatever talents and abilities I have, they're just borrowed plumes from Krishna. Krishna is the real reason why I have this or that skill or ability. Krishna is the real reason why we have this temple or this asset. It's due to the sanction and mercy of Krishna only. So when someone praises you, you say, aha, this is an opportunity to then pass that praise on to Krishna.
Yes.
What a brilliant response. Why do you degrade me in that way? So quick. It makes his point so cogently with just a few words, and it's funny, and it's not offensive, but it's a little bit, it really would catch somebody, I think, that they would respond that way. I mean, you think about that. That is a brilliant response that Prabhupada made. I gotta remember that one.
So yeah, I started reading this book, Prabhupada Nectar, before going to the bed. So there are small incidents. The one that I read last evening is it's between Swami and Prabhupada. So in the Western world, when Prabhupada came here, people started calling Prabhupada Swamiji, Swamiji. Everyone used to address Prabhupada as a Swami. So there are a lot of meanings of Swami, but the closest one is one who is the master. So one fine morning, someone said that it's better to call him Prabhupada or Vishnupad, one who serves the lotus feet of Krishna or Vishnu, than Swamiji. So Prabhupada prefers to be called as Prabhupada. So a lot of devotees who used to call him Swamiji, they said, okay, let me go and talk to Prabhupada directly and ask him what he wants us to call him. So I say, Prabhupada, I heard that you want us to call you Prabhupada instead of Swamiji. Prabhupada looked at this person and said, who told you this? And he said, so and so person. He said, not, but Prabhupada is better. And that one sentence says it all. When you go with the literal meanings of the words, and Prabhupada, we know that he has led the life that he should and must be called as Swami, but he chose to be called Prabhupada.
Yat pada pankaja palasha karmasinam gatita gatyanti shanto tadavam narikta yatyo matyo shudam shotigram tamaranam bhajabasa devam. Says no one can control their senses. No swamis, no yogis, no ascetics, no people who are fasting, no people who take vows of silence. Says none of them succeed in controlling their senses as effectively as someone who's always engaged in serving the lotus feet of the Lord. Getting up in the morning, chanting japa, going to Mangal Arti, doing Guru Puja, cooking, cleaning, making flower garlands, doing the artis, preaching, receiving guests, visitors, growing things, preparing things, taking care of the animals. 24 hours a day, one can be doing what may appear superficially to be ordinary everyday activities, but at every moment, although the activities vary, still the focal point is always the same. Yata dipo nivatashto, like a lamp in an unwavering place. Those who are devotees. They may not have a high profile, they may not have lots of followers, they may not have their own TV show. They may just be a housewife or a pujari or a driver, or like Jayananda. Jayananda used to take out the trash, young people would come to the temple in San Francisco and they'd meet this big, educated, sweet man, just full of love. And they would see that he was taking out the trash. And then they would think, if the guy who takes out the trash is such a saint, then what are the other people like? You know, what are the higher ups like? The fact is that Jayananda was the highest up because he was able and willing to do any menial task as long as it was Krishna centered. When Sutta Goswami first appeared amongst the sages in Naimisharanya, they only had one question for him. They didn't ask, how many Vedas do you know? How many slokas do you know? What family you were born in? How long you've been a devotee? They only said, can you tell us something about Krishna? Munya Sajo Prishtoham. They only had one question. Babadbir Loka Mangalam. Krita Krishna Samprashno Yatma Shubhi. They said, we only want one thing from you. It is, can you say something about Krishna? That will be good for people in general, and it will also satisfy our souls. It will give us that real rasa, that genuine, pure, free from material inebrities, rasa, after which the soul is hankering. The devotees may not even be recognized as great souls by others. They may even be criticized by society in general. You know, they could be, why are you cleaning the temple? You could be making, $100,000 a year in corporate. But Krishna sees everything. Krishna recognizes everything. And the other devotees, it takes one to know one. Other devotees recognize each other on the level of devotional service that they're at. Pavana, you've been quiet for a while. Surabhi, do you want to add anything more? You're always...
Pavana Mataji, you're on mute.
I'm on mute. Yeah, I'm just listening. This is very inspiring.
And now we have Rob as well. Rob, you are about to say something, but we switch the speaker. So it's back to you.
Yes, thank you, Prabhujis and Matajis. I'm glad to be here today and be able to sit down and actually listen instead of being busy. Yeah, the humility is what's been key for me. And even in last night's talk, a thought that came to me actually today relating to that was that the blessings that we're given are not necessarily given, well, in my case, they're not necessarily given to me for me. They're given to me so that I can serve others. So if I can use my blessings to serve others, then that'll keep me from letting my ego step in. And when the ego steps in is when the envy and jealousy of others will bring me down. And I'll be so preoccupied with that I won't focus on using my blessings for others. And that's been an important concept for me lately in my life. I've definitely been mired in the tamasic and rajasic lifestyle for so long, and I'm having to relearn how to live without turning to those things. I'm very familiar with 12-step programs that tie so cohesively to bhakti that it's been very inspiring to me. And there's a particular prayer that I say every morning and evening, and it's Krishna, I give myself to thee to build with and use as thou see fit. Please release me from this bondage of self so that I may better serve you and do thy will. Grant me victory over my difficulties that I may be an example to those that I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy will. And that helps remind me that these things are not mine. I'm not the one doing them. Krishna is the one that is playing the biggest key part in my life. And remembering that keeps me humble, and it keeps me in the mode of service, and it allows me to come closer to Krishna. And I'm incredibly grateful for that. And that's kind of just something I've taken away from this.
I was thinking about last night, since you mentioned it, Rob. Dhritarashtra had a lot of false prestige. He was frustrated. He was the oldest brother, but he was born blind. Therefore, he was disqualified from taking the throne. His younger brother became the king, Pandu, and then Pandu died, and Dhritarashtra became the guardian of his nephews. But Dhritarashtra was full of false prestige, frustrated, ambitions, and he was jealous and envious of his younger brother Pandu because he'd been born with eyes, and then he was jealous of his sons. And what happened was, as an expansion of Dhritarashtra's frustration, jealousy, Duryodhana appeared. And Dhritarashtra, being the virtual king, nobody could uh, say anything to him. His brother Vidura tried, but ultimately, what can you do when the man is acting as the king? The Pandavas were too young, and so basically all the decisions were made by Dhritarashtra. So he was the shot caller, and he never disciplined his son Duryodhana. He allowed that envious seed, which was passed from him to Duryodhana, to grow. Duryodhana fed that jealousy and that envy. The Pandavas had no fault at all. They were only the well-wishers of Duryodhana. But Duryodhana hated the Pandavas for no reason. And that's because Dhritarashtra never took care to root out envy and jealousy. And when that happens, it grows and it grows and it grows and it becomes a monster. It resulted in a world war. So, and then when Yudhisthira, he was forced to fight the war. He was forced basically to kill all of his enemies. But then his resolution, when he finally ascended to the throne, which was his lawful right, he wanted to make sure that there would be no envy or jealousy in the kingdom. And he knew that many of the kings of the world at that time had ill feelings towards the Pandavas. Many of them appreciated what they'd done, how they had reestablished religion, curbed the miscreants. But many of them were the sons and the brothers and the uncles and the aunts of the kings that had been killed in the Kurukshetra war. So Yudhisthira knew that although he had not been the aggressor, he had not fought the war for personal ambition, he nevertheless knew that the war had taken place by God's arrangement so that he could be in the throne instead of Dhritarashtra, and then as a representative of God, he had to do whatever he could do in order to make sure that those circumstances which led to the Kurukshetra war would never repeat themselves. And so what he told Arjuna when he defeated and won the battle of Kurukshetra, and then he was coronated basically as the king of the world, what was customary was to send a horse. That horse would roam all over the world. And if a horse came into your kingdom, you could do one of two things. You could either let the horse continue and then give the soldiers coming behind the horse tribute, offer your subjection to the king in Delhi who sent out the horse, or you could capture the horse. And that meant that you were not accepting that king's sovereignty and you wanted to fight. So Yudhisthira sent out the horse, which was to go all over the world to all the kingdoms, and Arjuna followed behind with an army. So if they allowed the horse to go, pass wherever it wanted, and give obeisances to Arjuna as a representative of Yudhisthira, then no problem. But Yudhisthira said, if they show signs of resistance, if they capture the horse, we don't want confrontation, we don't want war, we don't want peace. Show them love. Give them some space. Recognize that they're hurting from the loss of a father or a son or an uncle in the Kurukshetra war. Do everything you can to pacify them, even apologize, even take on the blame yourself if that's what will cool them down. But try to avoid any more war, any more fighting at all costs. Do not allow the flame of jealousy to find dry grass to then appear again. And then he said, if they take the horse and if they fight, they do not accept and they fight, try just to beat them into submission. Try not to kill them. There's a saying that in the seeds of every victory, in every victory, there's the seeds of a future defeat. So every time you fight, you orphan a son. You deprive a brother of a brother. And that envy, that jealousy, that resentment festers, grows, and eventually it produces another confrontation. Yudhisthira, being a devotee, he wanted to replace envy with love. He wanted to replace jealousy with support, with celebration. And that was his strategy moving forward at that time as the king of the world. Similarly, as devotees, we're meant to bring peace wherever possible. If it means biting your tongue, if it means saying you're wrong when you know you weren't wrong, then peace is the main thing. Non-confrontation. Our assignment's too big. Our lifetime is too short to waste it quarreling and quibbling over things that don't matter. Hare Krishna. Sarabi, something to add here?
I think there were two takeaways from today's Sangha. Crush the wave before it rushes to the shore and direct your compliment to one from where it is coming.
Very good. Very good. Who else would like to give us their takeaway? Rakesh, are you still there? Your takeaway from today. Kapilji?
Yeah, I think my main takeaway from today is the aspect of humility that we talked about, right? Especially the example you gave, that even like the person most higher up in that temple still had the humility to easily take out the trash without asking questions and do any service that he could do for Krishna. I think that's a strong message.
Excellent. Excellent. Govinda Dave?
I agree with Ishan. I think that was the core principle under discussion. If you can reach the point where no one is capable of offending you because you're so profoundly rooted outside material considerations. You were Krishna's man or woman or eternal spirit soul, and what people say about you, who cares? Why be offended by them? Why judge them? It's all just kind of passing. I think you once said, Caru, it's like kind of the froth on the seashore. It's just there and then it's gone. And it's easy to get sucked in, our false egos, but you maintain humility by chanting all the time, uninterrupted, unmotivated. Uninterrupted means like when you get to the end of chanting your rounds, you don't take a break, because that's when Maya is going to grab you and you won't even know what hit you. That's my takeaway.
It says, Ata Kavir Namashu Yavara Tat Siara Mamayo Vivashaya Sidheni Otartina Parisham Tata Samiksamano. This material world is names, it's just names. It's no more significance than the foam on the shore of the beach. It's just names, that's all. So what if somebody calls me names? That's just part of the phantasmagoria, which is this material world. And if you show the insight, if you show the vision, Krishna conscious vision of not being disturbed or bothered when people call you names, then that means you're on the transcendental. You're actually on the transcendental position. The only name we're interested in is Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sadhu Kavanai, that I am eternal servant of Krishna. Krishna Jiva, Baliya say Jiva, Krishna. I'm the eternal Dasana, Dasana, Das, servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna. That's only name. The more that people call us names, and the more we keep silent, your enemies, they want to provoke you. They want to spoil your day. So they hurl out this name like a spear, and you just dodge it and keep smiling and going on with your day. And that gets them frustrated. They start gnashing their teeth. They throw more spears and they call more names. And what's happening during all of that is every time you dodge the conflict, you avoid the spear that they throw, Krishna raises you higher. So the more names they call you, the more Krishna pushes you up. The more they try to pull you down, the more Krishna pushes you up. So this is the best revenge. You know, you want to get back at your enemies, just keep chanting Hare Krishna, thinking of yourself as a servant of Krishna. Let them keep calling you names. And in the midst of all that, Krishna is rising you higher, and they're getting more and more angry and more rabid, more and more frustrated. It's the best revenge, is just to be the best servant of Krishna you can possibly be.
My takeaway is, like you just said, keep smiling when people will offend you by throwing spears or calling you bad names. When you purify yourself by chanting Hare Krishna in the morning or whenever you get the chance to, you will automatically start smiling and start avoiding those type of people from coming into your life and well, really just kind of making you feel bad and offending you. That's my takeaway.
I like your smile too, Lakshmi. Your smile also is a smile of someone who's swan-like. You agree, Ajay? You proud of that young boy beside you?
Yes, yes, Prabhuji. Yes, Prabhuji.
So as fathers, we have to be like you to steer, and not like Dhritarashtra. We have to cultivate, bring out the non-envious, the love, and our dependence. Don't be a parent, don't be a politician. Govinda Bhakti quoted this last night. Unless you can bring out those devotional qualities in your student or your citizenry or your children. So you've obviously been successful in that, Ajay. So congratulations.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Pavana, do you want to say anything? Okay, let's go back to Pavana at the end, and you guys are scheduled to do the final kirtan too. So let's just. Rob always has some very pithy words to say at the end. So you want to wrap up for us, Rob, before we go back to Tooele for last words in kirtan?
I'm not sure if I'll be pithy today or not, but the key for me at least is humility, and just keeping that ego in check and not allowing myself to become so caught up in what's going on that I think that I can take credit for anything that's happening, because it's all Krishna's doing. Anything good that happens is Krishna, and even anything that appears to be bad is also Krishna's doing, because those are just challenges and opportunities for growth. And if I can remember that, then I will be a much happier, much more peaceful person.
We just have to Krishna do his job and we do our job. Our job is not to be the Lord, not to be the controller, not to set things right. That's Krishna's job, and he's really good at it. If we start to do Krishna's job, then he steps back, and then we're in a whole bunch of trouble, because we're really in over our heads as far as this material world goes, and all the different complications and relationships. It's far beyond our ability to make a peaceful, satisfactory resolution. But we just keep ourselves focused on chanting the names of the Lord, keeping ourselves pure, doing some service to the Lord, doesn't matter what it is. It can be sweeping the floor, whatever, taking out the trash. And then let Krishna do his job. He'll take care of our enemies. He'll make our crooked places straight. He'll open doors that we couldn't open ourselves. Thank you. I think we can have a word from Rakesh, who's just appeared back on our radar, and then go to Pavana and Radhe Shyam. What's your
Hare
take?
Krishna.
Haribol.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you. Sorry, I was mostly on the listening mode today, but I thought I'll share my takeaway from today's session. So for me, the takeaway is humility, keeping Krishna in the center, and engage yourself in the service for Krishna however you can. And also, everybody is invited. We are having pizza and pasta party today. So if anybody wants great lunch, prasadam, please come.
Enjoy, Rakesh Prabhuji.
There are some people who are literally 10 minutes away from you, so unfortunately it'll take me 45 minutes to get there. I don't think there'll be any left, but those of you who are in the Salt Lake area, you could jump into your car and be there in less than 10 minutes. And thanks to the wonderful couple from Houston for coming to the services. They also visited in Spanish Fork for making prasadam this morning. Houston is a wonderful temple with wonderful devotees, and we're getting practical example of that right now. Bhavana and Radheshami, you want to make any last comments and finish off with the kirtan?
There's a saying, the best revenge is to succeed. Be a good devotee and just be humble, and we're hearing that a lot, and you'll come out on top, and Krishna will protect you.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare
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 Ram,
Ram,
Hare
Hare
Ram,
Ram, Ram
Ram
Ram,
Ram,
Hare Hare.
Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
Bhavana, Radhe
Hare
Shyam.
Krishna Mataji.
Thank you for
Thank
the
you.
thank you for the beginning and the ending kirtan, as well as for your comments. Thank you, Ajay and Lai, for participating. Surabi, it's always a joyous, as always. Rob, Kapil, and Ishan, Govinda Dev. Govinda Dev's family is going to visit the Diamond Fork Hot Springs today, so there's a
Nice.
possibility, maybe 50-50, that they'll swing by, stop for the Sunday feast here on their way back. We'll look forward to that. Thank you all, and thanks to those who liked our broadcast on Facebook. Jayashree Radha Devi Dasi, William Griffith, Lakshmi Nashringa, Guru Krishnadas, Radhe Sham, of course, and Bhavana, Pratik Tripathi, Bhakti Gary, Kusham Deeman, Brent Spencer, Dharma Bhavana Das, Anjali, and Jean Eskelson all either liked or loved the Zoom Salt Lake City Sanga today. After a bit of a hiatus, because frankly, the Festival of Colors in Salt Lake City knocked me out for a few days, and then we're still recovering. We're still recovering from the wonderful 20th anniversary celebration happened last week. But we'll be back tomorrow morning with Motivational Monday, the day after with Transcendental Tuesday, and then with Wisdom Wednesday for those who follow us. That washing machine has gone on, so I better stop this, cut it short before we get drowned out. But one last announcement is, if you can see it, how do I do this? I've got a hard drive that Prashant gave me of lots of images and videos from last Sunday at the 20th anniversary of the Spanish Fort opening temple. So I'm going to spend some time this afternoon putting those on Facebook along with the ones that we already have, so that you can relish. If you were there, you can relive, reminisce on some of those happy memories. And if you weren't there, you'll get a sense of how momentous and how wonderful it was to celebrate 2 decades in the Spanish Fort Temple. Thank you all. We'll see you next Sunday, if not sooner. Oh, I also have to remind too, for those who are listening and who are in the area, the Rath Yatra, I believe, is next Thursday, right? Salt Lake City, Thursday night at 6 o'clock. Tell me.
No, July 11th.
It's July 11th, Pro.
Okay, so
It's a Sunday.
2 Thursdays then. Okay, all right. Well, we'll keep you informed about that. Thank you again. Always remember Krishna and never forget him. Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna. Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare.